Pro Audio Secrets, a show that helps you to find your own voice in sound.
Building the connections with folks is maybe the most important aspect for me. If game audio is something that you want to do, that is the priority, and you want to put all of that free time that you have, put that passion into it. Before I really felt able to kind of step out on my own, easily 5 years.
From his point of view, our audio industry is very toxic.
I get that sense of like a stagnation in a way, because everyone's collectively but separately learning the same things, and we're not progressing the art form either. I think that apprenticeship relationship needs to be what we foster as a community. That's my hope, that we can start to reach out in ways that can benefit more people and the industry as a whole.
In this conversation, I talk with game audio veteran Andrew Corbitt, who worked on God of War, Spider-Man, and many other projects throughout the last 15 years. Prior to that, he was busy as an audio engineer in the music world, and he's a musician himself. He's mentoring people from Amir Satwat's list. Basically, if you don't know that, check that out. We put it in the description. And it was a great conversation about his kind of upbringing in the audio industry and how he pivoted into game audio, what it actually took to learn the ropes about game audio, and how long he took to actually, be there full time and fully fledged sound designer within games. And then we talk about what it takes these days for people to get into the industry and what are our understandings and findings that we have. If that resonates with you, enjoy the episode. So yeah, Andrew, thank you very much for taking the time. Again, it's really a pleasure to have you here on the show. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you're currently doing? I know you're working in game audio mainly, and you're doing also a little bit of mentoring, because that's how I got to know about you, because one of my mentees mentioned you, that you also teach him a little bit, the ropes.
Right. Yes. Which it's so funny how small world it really is when it comes to, all these connections. Yeah, game audio, that's my thing. For the past, what was I just saying before we moved here to 10 years? I've been working in game audio specifically for a little longer than that, so maybe about 13 years.
Wow.
Started out freelancing and kind of learning what I didn't already know from the recording side of the industry that I started in, and music before that. I've always been a musician, play guitar and dabble in drums and piano, and originally thought that's what I was going to get into games doing, was composing,
Okay.
Quickly learned that wasn't as enjoyable as I thought it would be, as far as the creative, the aspect of when you're making something creative for yourself versus what you need to deliver a product on the end that, satisfies the client. And that was a big challenge. Honestly, I was a self-taught musician, so I didn't have kind of the musical training, the background to cover all manner of, different styles and genres that often are needed, I think, in games. With a full, composer probably needs to have those skills. And but I did have a great ear for recording sounds and manipulating them, and I love playing with plugins and everything in the box. And so sound design kind of just fell in naturally at that point. And I've been doing it ever since. And
so
then the mentoring
was easier
side
for you. Yeah. Come again?
Yeah. The mentoring side, you mentioned how one of my mentees is also yours, and we have this shared connection in that way. That's more recent. I kind of jumped into that maybe about a year and a half ago with partnering up with Amir Satwat's community, and just kind of put my name out there and thought, I love helping folks, and if there's something that I could ever provide anybody that might help them to kind of get a step into the industry that's already so difficult, then I would love to do that. So it's kind of, taken on a new form after, joining up with him. And I forget how many we have now. I've probably mentored maybe 20 to 30 people in the last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and just as a spare time thing. It's not like I have full time availability for it, but wherever I can, and helping with reviewing reels or resume tips and all of the things that I've learned over all this time, and just trying to kind of pay it forward in a way for folks like the one we share, and many more that are just trying to get a leg up and understand what they need to move forward.
And you do this all in your free time, and you also don't charge for that. So that's all like volunteering work for you?
Oh yes, oh yes, yeah, volunteer, yeah, and for me, that's all I ever want to do. It's not uh, something I was hoping to build a business from necessarily. It's just it feels great, and I love that. Building the connections with folks is maybe the most important aspect for me, and I don't know. It's just I never even honestly never occurred to me that I should make a program around it or anything. It just kind of organically became what it has over time.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really honorable, and
Oh, thank
I really admire this. From my point of view, I want to make. I'm building a business around the whole mentoring thing, because from my point of view, I see it as a chance, to also break a little bit free from that pressure that comes from within the industry. Like as a freelancer, we always have to have projects to work on and clients that feed us new stuff.
right.
So if that breaks away, like what to do next, and therefore I'm thinking about this whole mentoring from a business perspective as well. Of course, giving as much value as possible and helping people with the things I think work these days. So what is your kind of vision for your own business? You're currently employed, right? But you started out as a freelancer.
Well, still freelancer. Yeah, actually, funny turn of events in the last week. I considered reaching out to let you know ahead of time, but then I thought, oh, we'll talk about it here. But with the contract that I had begun when we first started talking about doing this podcast, I've already been let go from that project. So
Hmm.
now I'm just back to freelancing and finding more work, and um, created my own business ahead of all of that as well. So now I can officially, contract with various groups and in capacity. So that's exciting. But yeah, the mentoring aspect of it and building a business around that, I would love to do that. I think that would be something that would be really cool and helpful for many people. And I love that you're already, you know, putting together a program that is focused around the most value for people, and that's really inspiring to me too. So
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a unique perspective on how
right.
we approach sound, and everyone has a different history. I obviously ended up doing Foley. Also, didn't plan
Mhm.
that in the first place, but yeah, now I have certain things that I learned within that journey, and these are the things that I want to share now. So, for example, how to record sounds in your edit suite or home studio, because I was kind of doing Foley in ADR studios and vocal booths. I never had a proper Foley stage. So I developed a couple of techniques to record proper sounds in such environments. And I think that's a really valuable thing for people to have, because most people, if they even do field recording, they kind of hit a wall when they start recording stuff at home. Um,
Yes, yes,
and that is
I
something
did as well.
yeah, there you go. And
Yeah,
that's something
yeah.
I really know how to get around. And so that's the one thing that I want to share. And then within the last couple of years, I started this social media thing and putting videos out there, like first on a daily basis, and now building also YouTube channel. And that also helped me, to really yeah, get my business going also from the freelance side, because um, I have
Get
a
that
couple of clients
visibility.
now, yeah, through that visibility that just reached
Hmm.
out to me from different parts of the world, even. And these might be,
Wow.
contacts that I would have never gained without all those videos. And
Right. Right.
so,
Yeah.
but then interestingly enough, I had one YouTube video where I kind of had like a little, explanation of what I think is needed today to land a job or to make your career and to, get something done and earn money with this. And then there was like a long comment from someone who basically said, from his point of view, everything that I mentioned might be true, but it also indicates that our audio industry is very toxic because you have to be like an influencer and you have to be so trained up to do the work, and no one is really willing to mentor or train you within a company anymore. So where to learn? And then, so all these things might be true. So how do you feel about our industry, and what was it for you back then? You mentioned that you started out doing music and feeling not so comfortable delivering on that format, and then it
Right.
was easier for you to be creative towards a client with sound design.
Right. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
and you managed to come to a very high level in this craft, and you worked on Spider-Man and God of War and worked for Sony and Formosa, so like the biggest names. And how did you get there, and how did the process feel for you?
That's a funny kind of trip through time there. Yeah, the with transitioning from where I thought my expertise lies, with music and everything, and getting even more and more interested at that period into recording specifically. I went to engineering school and wanted to learn all I could about that. I was always just fascinated by kind of the art of capturing sounds in music, and wanted to understand how to do kind of having like that control over the process, where as a musician, as far as my limited knowledge at the time, you write your songs, but you have to go and take it to somebody to have that made into what you would like to show to the world.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn how to do that, so that's where it really started. And I've been just enamored by the process ever since, and especially with all of the manipulation things that we have at our disposal now, with all the technology and just mind-boggling things that we can do with sounds, especially on a computer. So yeah, everything's kind of grown from that mentality, I think, more than anything, at least for me. But as far as your other question about the industry at large, when I was beginning to find my interest in game audio, that period of time was difficult for me. I think that was maybe 3 or 4 years of kind of struggling to find my footing, and a lot of things that I hear, like probably what you experienced after the YouTube comments, and it did feel like the industry as a whole was very against newcomers. There weren't a lot of resources that I could find at the time, and this is 13, 14 years ago. Very, very little, like what I would go on now on YouTube just to learn some things, like, oh yeah, I know somebody's done this before. I'll go see, Unreal Metasound video on blah, blah, blah. That wasn't around back then, There were some books that I remember just voraciously devouring everything I could in that, Unreal tutorials and mixing and mastering, and the Bobcats book. I mean, I still have those on my shelf. They were very helpful, but that was all I had. So started to learn around that time period, and before I finally got kind of a full-time job in game audio, how important it was to make some connections with people already doing it, and learn what maybe helped them get through the doors. And so that's, kind of fast forward to now, and where I feel like the industry is still kind of the same on that, with, difficulties for entry level jobs. And I feel like the more that those of us that have been around can do to help those to get started, the better our industry is going to be over the long term. We need, all levels of experience. We need to be able to bring up new people and not rely on just the old guys that have been doing this already for so long. So that's important. That's part of my kind of mentoring, side hustle, if you can call it that.
Like your motivation to
right
to give something back, maybe, or also to keep things alive. I mean, once the whole craft shouldn't die. It's kind of the same with the art of Foley, because so many Foley artists that I know, for example, here in Germany, are past 50, past 60, past 70. And so there's not a lot of new people coming, and the people who come new might not have learned all the stuff from the old masters. And so therefore a lot of stuff gets lost, on the why. And that's a kind of a shame, because okay, then maybe we invent new things, but why not take the heritage and build up on that and invent new things over that, instead of everyone figures it out themselves again and again and again. That doesn't really help to level up.
Yeah, kind of get that sense of like a stagnation in a way, because everyone's collectively but separately learning the same things at a very basic fundamental level, and we're not progressing the art form either. But yeah, I think that apprenticeship relationship needs to be a part of what we foster as a community, around game audio in general. That's my hope, is that we can start to reach out in ways that can benefit more people and the industry as a whole.
So when you then landed your first job in game audio, did you also feel that kind of apprenticeship vibe around the studio with your peers?
Yeah, very much. And only really because I was able to be, in a team environment, at the studio itself, pre-COVID, before everything was so remotely accessible. And, well, it was, but we didn't think of it at the time, I think. But having a great camaraderie there at the studio, and learning from guys way more experienced than I am, even still, with history in all areas of games. And it was I always say, is the best environment I could have started in, to learn such a diverse array of skills that we need in games, honestly, and kind of furthered that fuel for what had only really begun a few years before on kind of getting interested in game audio. But, it continues to this day. I still think of things that I learned from that first job and I carry with now to this day. So huge thanks to TJ O'Leary and Mark Packard, if you're out there watching. I owe those guys so much.
And which company was that at?
Kings Isle. It's a studio here in Austin, north of Austin, in Round Rock. And at the time when I joined up, they had already been around for almost 10 years, which is also pretty rare in games, to have a longevity that spans that long. And it's a successful game, kind of lasting that entire time too. It was a MMORPG called Wizard 101, family friendly, kind of Harry Potter-ish RPG, and we were working on that simultaneously with a mobile department that was experimenting and building out mobile games, all different kinds of genres. It was we did all kinds of things, and just a great learning environment.
And that learning process, how long do you feel did it take you to be around those people, learning from them, until you got a grasp of the whole thing, so that you felt confident in, okay, I could do something on my own now?
Several years. I probably, the first year was almost entirely just being a sponge to all of the information and the techniques and the skills and everything to just do the job
Hmm.
well. Um, and then get to the point where I didn't require assistance on basic things, and then then the following 2 years there were, I think, where I managed to kind of get a grasp on things and adventure out a little bit more into more advanced sound design and get further into the engines and understand how things are working under the hood. We were working with Unity for the mobile games, or the proprietary engine for Wizard. And I'd say it was easily 2 years before I really felt comfortable in branching out further.
Hmm.
So
And that was
sorry, go ahead.
4 years of you before fiddling around with game audio and learning stuff on your own?
Just about. It was about 3.5 years before getting hired at Kings Isle. And that was fiddling, some freelance work, but mostly fiddling around and working with other people, making mods to Half-Life or whatever. Indie teams, they were working on some unique stuff. And that's where I learned Unreal. But yeah, so I guess all in before I really felt able to kind of step out on my own, so to speak. Easily 5 years.
And I think this is just how audio works. I don't know if this is toxic or not. It somehow never felt toxic to me because I have such a great love for audio, that
Same.
I never cared about what it actually takes. I was interning also in the music industry for
Mm-hmm.
maybe 10 years as
Oh, really?
as an engineer here and there, but my own music was always the priority, so I never made it very far as an engineer. Anyhow, then going into film post-production, which I was starting out with then after like finally switching priorities towards audio
Yes.
engineering, I then interned again a couple of months here and there in different locations, and then landed an apprenticeship for 2.5 years, like similar to your first job, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a paid gig, and I had to go to a school every third week, and then I was 2 weeks at the company, and then at the end I got a degree kind of thing. But I
Oh,
only did
okay.
that apprenticeship because it enabled me to stay 2.5 years with all those great people in that fantastic post-production facility in Berlin. And for that, I would have also worked there for free, if I could have afford, like if there was a way to afford my life, there was no question about it. And then
Yeah.
it was so hard to get in there even. I had so much prior experience, so like all the audio engineering stuff was pretty clear to me. And then, but that really didn't do a lot of difference to learn dialogue editing and to
Oh.
understand like film and how film sound editing works. Um, it was really a complete new learning of a new craft that was kind of, yeah, it was okay to know audio engineering, but it was not like, yeah, I know so much, so I'm gonna learn this in a week or in a month or in 3 months. And then they really gave me a lot of tasks to finish, and then they also monitored me. Sorry, I have this AI tracker on my camera that always then just starts to follow me. It's like a new
It's all right.
gimmick I'm using. So so then they monitored me and looked when I come and when I go and how do I work on the stuff, and then they were kind of convinced that they want to do this apprenticeship with me. And then one of my main mentors took me aside and said, look, you have like a 1 hour commute, and the other day you just had to leave at 4:30 because you needed to catch a train. Do you really think you can come here every day and spend more than 8 hours for the next 2.5 years? Because that is actually what I think will take you to be ready for the industry. And
Wow.
and I answered that yes with yes, and I also took it to heart. I was always the first one to come, and not often, but sometimes the last one to go.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave us projects that we could handle on our own, like no budget or low budget stuff, then we could kind of supervise that and do everything and mix it and do everything. And then they gave us regular projects just with a double amount of time and no responsibility in terms of, if you have an issue, just communicate it early. But, you know, we are going to responsible for the result, not you.
Wow.
And that was really great. And, you know, looking over the shoulder of all those experienced guys, and then doing it myself, that really helped me on real projects, you know, to be able after 2.5 years to really then go on the market. And then I landed my first job, and I was really confident, you know, that I can deliver on that series that I worked then for a whole year on, doing everything. That was then no problem after that. But I think
They set you up
nowadays,
well.
come again?
They set you up well for that.
Yeah, it was really like the best school for me, and I'm so thankful to this day. You know, I loved everything about that. And nowadays, it's so much more accessible, as you said. You know, some people, that is just something Pedro from Brazil told me in our conversation that we had last week, because he's also mentoring a lot in Brazil.
Oh, great.
And he said, you know, people get interested into sound design on a regular Monday, and the next thing they do, they go on YouTube and just research the topic, watch a couple of videos, and then they think, yeah, okay, let's download Reaper, it's for free. Then let's download another video, and then let's download a couple of free sounds, and then they do their first project, let's say on that Monday, and then the next day they think they're a sound designer, and they're, you know, in an extreme kind of way, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you feel about this development when you look at the people you mentor, and what is your kind of take on that? Like, what should people do, and what should people expect, you know, to go through until they are really ready for the job?
Ooh, that's a big question. I think when I've had any mentees, you know, kind of ask similar things, like, well, you know, how long does it usually take, or what should I know first, or, you know, it's a bit of a conversation to have, kind of to set an expectation, a reset maybe is a better word, of expectations for what you and I both experienced, you know, coming up, in the amount of time and hours and repetition of tasks, even, you know. It's kind of funny that you know, as you were saying, is like, if someone can get all of these, you know, quick free resources, throw them together, and now they're a sound designer. It's like, well, you did a sound design thing, yes, one of hopefully many, but we need to have that kind of many you know, tasks and repeated tasks, and you know, what was the old this is the Bruce Lee thing of, you know, the 10,000 hours or something like that, you know, to master any particular skill. And sound design is no different. You know, I felt the same thing when I was getting into audio engineering before, you know, pivoting into game audio. And you know, the guys that were the head engineers at the studio, and I was interning in California, like they had those 10,000 hours, and they were there all the time. And the expectation was, you know, if you wanted to come up in this world, you know, we're happy to train you and teach you all of these things that we've learned, but we need that dedication. And so I feel like that's maybe what is lost these days with having all of these resources readily available. It kind of can be confusing maybe for someone starting out, and thinking that, you know, well, it's all there. All I have to do is, you know, download Reaper for free. And like you said, you know, put a couple of free sounds together, and, oh, I got a little blurry there. Come on. But yeah, I think there's much more to it. And what I look for in mentees is the dedication to the craft, and the, you know, being willing to put in the work, and as far as they can, you know, kind of volunteer that on their own time, you know, because most people starting out are also working side jobs, like I have almost all my career. And you've got to be able to prioritize things and make sure that if game audio is something that you want to do, that is the priority, and you want to put all of that free time that you have into it, put that passion into it.
Thank you very much for watching up until this point. If you are interested in mentoring or being a mentee of either Andrew or me, feel free to reach out to us, andrewcorbitt.com, or go to my Instagram page and put the word industry down in the DMs, and then you can set up a roadmap call with me. We are happy to get to know you. And if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, wherever you watch or listen, please do so. It helps us to continue do what we do. And I definitely want to promise you that I want to get better at this to deliver the most possible value to you. Let's get back to the episode. That's the word, passion, hunger.
Yeah, right.
I think that's also what people look for when they hire someone.
Yes.
If you don't see that hunger and that passion, then where's the point to hire you? Yeah? Because everyone who really is successful in this industry more or less has this passion, to be honest. Like everyone I know that I worked with was kind of, really dedicated and passionate about the job. And it was not just, I do this for a living and the money is good. So, I'm doing this. This is not like that, isn't it?
No, not in my experience. I mean, I think I've met a handful of people that maybe can kind of sit back at this point in their career. They've already been through years and years and years of pouring their passion into things, and now they can step back and relax a little bit. But no, I think it's so important for what we do to have that. It's any creative pursuit, really. I mean, I can think of, friends that have written books on things they're passionate about, or, some that are still musicians and they're always pouring themselves into whatever they're writing currently, and, working day jobs and that sort of thing to make, ends meet. You got to pay for bills and, be able to fund your passion projects. But, for those of us that are lucky enough to be paid to do this, I think it's just even more. You've got to maintain that passion for every day and always keep learning and growing.
I was visiting a friend of mine having vacation, another town in Germany. I went there with my daughter, and then there was this community of people there, and one of the guys also kind of worked in the music field back in the days, and he had his own studio and still has a lot of guitars. He went on doing something else like coaching in a spiritual kind of way, but he makes a lot of money with that, I guess. And then he was interested in what I do, and I told him I'm a professional Foley artist, and I'm working out of my own studio. And then he said like, oh wow, because I can definitely understand that if you make a living from that, you must be really good and really dedicated and passionate, because otherwise there's no way to make money with this. And that felt pretty good, that someone who has no relation to the craft, but has a broad knowledge about audio industry and working with audio, like understood that right away, that this is a great achievement if you can survive or make a living from audio as a professional. So
truly,
kudos to everyone who does it, and everyone who wants to go for it. You have to understand that it really takes a lot of effort and passion, and it may seem toxic to some people, but if you have that fire for it, maybe it isn't that toxic. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and we're all subjective, in our experience on this planet. It's toxic to one may not be to another, and it's funny because like you're right in that it seems regularly. The more I meet people in our world of audio, the more that passion, drive, it's so important in what we do, and we all share that. We wouldn't continue to pursue what we do if we didn't have that. I think it seems kind of counterintuitive.
And especially with the game audio community, I feel a lot of togetherness and connection, because with all the game conventions and developers conferences, all those game audio meetups that are happening,
Right.
it's way stronger than, let's say, for the film sound side of things from my kind of perspective, because going to a film festival, I think, can be very lonely. And with game developers conferences, it's not like that, because you know where to go, and then you have other people who show you around, and it feels very welcoming. So I can also recommend to everyone to go to those conferences, because it can really make a difference to make connections and find people that you can maybe learn from or just become friends with over time.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah, yeah. Connections are so important, and yeah, there's no better way than real life, in person. Getting that time with somebody, and um, you never know what will come of it. It's one of those great things in life is connecting with people that you may have never run into in any other capacity, but having what we share in game audio for sure, and audio in general, is something that's so kind of niche and unique that I think we already have this connection. We just have to get together and kind of relish it
yeah, and
in any situation.
it feels also to me that, let's say, someone who is really just starting out, doesn't have a lot of experience, and comes to such a developers conference, they are really welcomed, and can meet people at eye level, like also the very like senior executives or audio directors, and
Oh yeah,
everyone
oh
is
yeah.
so open and relaxed and down to earth. And if you present yourself properly and also naturally, I think there's so much to gain there. And from another perspective, I want to ask you, because I noticed a lot of people who are starting out, they always kind of say, yeah, I'm passionate about games and I want to work on game audio, but I'm also interested in linear media, and I kind of want to do both. How do you feel about that? And what is
Oof.
your take here? Do you also experience that, people telling you this, or?
Oh sure, oh sure, yeah, and there are plenty of people who manage to juggle that. I, I can't think of or don't mention names or anything, but like there are numerous folks I know that have managed to do that throughout their entire career somehow. I'm not one of them, but I wouldn't mind working on linear stuff, and in games I have worked on linear,
Mm.
cinematics and things, and those skills are transferable, I think, in many ways. But having not like specifically worked in any Hollywood projects, for example, I can't say firsthand, but yeah, I do encounter that too. It's kind of I mean, I think it's refreshing in a way. There's a kind of, what's the term, a jack of all trades sort of uh, ethos around game audio in general, because we need to know how to design sounds in a DAW. We also need to know how to get those sounds to work in an engine, middleware often, and we wear all of these different hats at any given point. That I think other aspects of audio don't touch upon it in the same way. So, as far as working in linear media and games, like sure, go for it. If you have the passion for both, I don't see any reason why they one should be kind of mutually exclusive from the other.
Yeah,
Um,
I get that. I also appreciate your openness, and that people should do what they think they should do, and if they think game audio and movies are the thing for them to develop on. Um, However, I think there's so much to learn on both ends in a different way. So, for example, the stuff that you need to learn in game audio is more than what you need to learn in linear media in one sense, because you have to know a lot of stuff about middleware, engines, maybe even coding. And then also you have to understand how games work. You should definitely be a gamer, just being
right,
passionate about
right.
audio. is a problem when you're not playing any games, because how you then should know how games sound and how should games work. And then you have not only, let's say, and animation, you have so many other different categories of
Right,
things that
right.
go into a game that you also kind of have to understand and learn, so that you know how your audio is related within all that complex systems. And then on the other side, in the film business, you have certain elements of how things are structured, or what it actually needs in terms of sound to really translate it onto the screen, yeah, or in the cinema, that it actually plays back in the way you want it. It's an
Mm,
experience based kind of knowledge. You cannot learn that just from a book or from watching one guy doing something. You have to go into it and really learn it to understand what sound you need. And that's also true for games, but in a different way, because the player is conducting the scenery. So you have a different approach there. But that
yeah.
for movies, like for example, dialogue editing is a craft on its own, that it took me so long to understand it in the first place, and then it took me even longer to get good at it. So it's repetition
Right.
all over. And then how you want to manage to be a good dialogue editor and to be really good in designing and implementing sounds for any given game. So it's kind of like, where do you want to take the time? So I always tend to advise people, look inside yourself. What is it what you really want to do? And then first
Mm.
learn the ropes around that. So my next question to you is, as you are an expert in game audio,
Oof.
I believe, yeah, I mean, way more than I am. I worked 5 years at Ubisoft, but I was there as a Foley artist, and I never really worked any stuff in an engine, whatever, and implemented only like small things. So you know way more than I do. So what do you think? Do people actually need to learn in terms of game audio? Hard facts, knowledge, wise, unity, even coding. Like, what's the standard these days? Because 6 years
Ah,
ago, if you knew wise, you were already standing out when applying for a game audio position. But I think this is not the case
absolutely.
anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's to a certain degree, those that still needs to be. I mean, Wise is still probably the most common and widely accepted middleware in the
But
industry. So
you could make yourself stand out back then by telling people, I know wise. And I mean, this is not really a factor anymore, because anyone everybody knows that nowadays, right?
right, well, they should, yeah. If not Wise, Fmod, or some equivalent, and just being able to understand and talk the lingo so that you can, if you don't know the particular middleware of a studio, because there's so many proprietary ones out there too,
Hmm.
you at least have the understanding of how these things work and can apply that knowledge to whatever system is already being utilized on a particular project. But yeah, it's that's a necessary. I mean, and I say the same thing to my mentees. Uh, you need to know Reaper, you need to know Wise or equivalent, and you need to have some time spent in an engine. I usually recommend Unreal, but I mean it could be Unity, it could be anything else. Um, and and there's a balance to kind of making sure you have a generalist amount of skills in those things if you're starting out, so that all of those combined can kind of be like what you're describing Wise used to be for someone coming into games. Now it's kind of being a generalist in any of those things. That can be your best advantage going forward, because I mean there's so many different specialized roles that you could end up growing into over the long term. Um, Even with dialogue in games, I mean,
Hmm.
there are guys who handle that and nothing else, on really large projects when they have tens of thousands of lines of dialogue, and
Hmm.
um, uh, it there. I think depending on where you're trying to land or where you end up going with the various different sizes of studios, from indies up to triple A's, and the roles that need certain like specialized bits of skills, then that's further down the road. For everyone starting out, my general recommendation is find your kind of generalist comfort in all of these things, and you've got the best amount of skills that you can step forward with, and then learn what you need to, for each particular project.
And does it also include coding from your point of view?
Not from my point of view, not for audio. I think if you wanted to be a audio programmer, then absolutely. There are some, as far as I know, technical sound design roles that do benefit from having a knowledge of code. For instance, when I was first starting out, I thought I needed to know, a hefty amount of coding. So I took a Python course, and ever since I've never used it. But I have that, that general knowledge, at least if I ever needed to. I think we're very fortunate now at this time period where all of our tools are, kind of graduating from requiring that kind of under the hood knowledge of code, where, with Unreal and Unity and all of our middleware tools, even, like, you can accomplish very advanced things without needing to write a single bit of code. But that said, it's kind of like the equivalent of, a mechanic needing to know the way the transmission works in a car, where you may not ever need to break apart, and get down into the gears and all of the things, but at least you know how it works, to diagnose 100%. An issue. Yeah.
So now stepping into the realm of, you are now in a company starting out as a junior, you might have different, there are different expectations that, are given to you, or responsibilities that maybe you have now. When you are tasked with someone as a senior, you have different responsibilities and people expect different things from you. What was your experience, growing in that industry from someone who's learning from others to someone who is now capable of being full-fledged, doing all the things that you do? How do you feel yourself in this process? What did change, and did people communicate that properly to you, or is it just an automatic process, or are people really aware of those kind of roles? What is a senior? What is an intermediate? What is a junior?
Good question. I think it maybe depends on the kind of inner culture of your team more than anything. For instance, when I first started, as a junior and was part of the team at Kings Isle, and everybody there was far more senior than I was, and still, to this day. It was never I never had a sense like, I can't do this thing. It's like, that's so and so's job. Like, I'm not advanced enough to do. They were always welcoming of anything that I wanted to try and learn, and the environment was very nurturing in that way. To try and bring up the junior to learn all of these skills, and as far as when I'm working with anyone that maybe is in the junior level, and I have anything that I can impart knowledge on, I would do the same. It's the team. The team is always going to be stronger, when we pick each other up. And that's one of the things I've always loved about the game audio community in general. It's what attracted me very early on, meeting some of the folks here in town when I first moved to Austin. And it's just, I think that's an important aspect to what we do, working on these often huge projects. And if we were to kind of individualize, every single task, we would probably end up running in circles to a certain extent. So-and-so, needs to only handle this, job. They're only going to be on dialogue. So that means the rest of us have to do this. But shared knowledge is a powerful thing. So I'm always going to support that.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you. That it also feels great when you share knowledge and you see other people taking on that and elevating from it.
Yes.
And what is the expectation that people have on you now these days as a senior? Like,
Gosh, I mean, I think at this point it's kind of everything. When you get to this point in at least in games, I personally know where a lot of my weak points are more than I ever knew back in the early days. The naivety, I suppose, of starting out. But yeah, now I'm very aware of, like, I need to spend more time in the engine, and I need to learn more about some of the things that I was not touching for years while I was more of a creative sound designer, and get back into, like, wise and learn more of the inner workings of things that have changed, and Unreal too, for that matter. So I feel like now it's even more of that generalist vibe of, having a good handle on anything that could come up in the process, start to finish, of a development cycle, because that's, being in a senior role and being able to have that, walking into any situation, and the confidence to be able to handle it. I think that's kind of the expected place
yeah,
to
and
be.
also to to handle it and also kind of conduct it in a way that you don't go and look for other people to fix it, but you build something around you that helps fixing it, and you facilitate others with knowledge that they can help you fix it if you cannot do it on your own. That's
Right.
basically like a difference, right? That is not
Yeah.
expected from an intermediate sound designer who maybe just helps one or two people out with what they know. Whereas a junior, no one expects from that person to fix complex issues. This is more like, you have this task, do that really well and deliver really well. And if you have problems, then communicate early. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
and so that's how I experienced at Ubisoft. And so many situations came up where then juniors or even interns kind of thought, they can really challenge high level decisions on the department that came from the directors. They didn't really feel that this decision or this kind of way of thinking how to approach this part of sound within the department is right. So
Oh, yeah.
did you also experience that the young generation kind of doesn't have that ethos that maybe we had, to just take your head down and listen and learn and work hard to not get kind of, I don't know, hit on the head, or like that no one like throws a bottle at you in the mixing stage or whatever. I don't know.
Did you ever have that happen?
No, but I know people that did, and
Yes,
it
me
can
too.
be like very tough, when you work on a movie in a cinema and you do the wrong thing, or you're just not there and you're not present, you're not focused, and you're not like the man in the room. People can get really snappy, and maybe that's also
Oh,
not a good
yeah.
thing, but this is kind of the vibe, when I was in a studio in Cologne from a friend, not a friend of mine, but a very good sound designer and re-recording mixer I really admire, and he also took me on to help him teach at the university. And then
Ooh.
we just were at the studio, like his Dolby Atmos mixing stage, and then he had his junior kind of studio manager around, and they were just delivering on a cinema movie for a big festival or whatever, like this kind of a bit more artsy scene, but the highest level. And you could feel the tension in the room, even though there was no clients, and it was just a normal day, 11 o'clock, whatever. But the guy has this authority, and the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, and the people who work with him, they respect that. And it's just like, okay, we are here now. This is like 100% focus, and we make no mistakes, because if this delivery gets, wrong, we have a big problem. And
Right.
that kind of, tension and energy and focus I really love about the sound world. And nowadays, people maybe don't appreciate that anymore, because they feel like, oh, this is too much pressure, or, you know,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
did you experience similar things?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can remember numerous, especially recording sessions, um, for VO and things, and yeah, you want that. At the time, I was in kind of that junior position, but uh, with being present in that situation and kind of having experience from my recording engineering years before, uh, I at least felt similar to you. Like I was excited for the day. I wanted to be ready on all fronts and have all of everything prepped well in advance. Go the extra mile and have apples and olive oil for the voice artists in case they have something. Like everything that I could possibly do, and I love that stuff too. I think it's funny to hear on a kind of a new generation, I suppose, for folks coming into audio now that maybe don't experience that in the same way. Yeah, it must be a different world that we're in now, because that's all I've known as far as it's studio life and the expectations for the product and what you're trying to achieve. And
Mm,
there's usually someone there that's kind of heading that day, whatever the project is. And I think the energy probably starts there and then trickles
mm.
down to everyone else, right?
Yeah, true.
um, yeah, and there are some that were entirely the opposite and totally relaxed, and just having fun with whatever we were doing. Like it was more of an in between um, clients situation, and we just had some free time. The studio was already booked, and so like, well, what are we gonna do? Let's have some fun with some props and go and make some weird sounds with it we might have use for later.
Mm.
And the dynamic completely changed, and it was just this kind of goofy. Probably because everything up until that point had been very focused and results driven, that we could kind of let off some steam and just have some fun. But to me, both aspects are fun. So uh, yeah, it's funny. It's funny to hear that you're encountering some of this on the other end of the spectrum more recently than
Yeah,
what,
and I
what
still
we what
loved
we
it,
both came up in.
I love that vibe and that energy, and when someone is really like, I know something's going on a high level here. So this is
Mm-hmm.
like what always kind of fascinated me, to do something properly on a high level. That is always like mastery. That is something I'm really
Right,
fascinated by.
right.
This
Mastery is
is
a good word.
personal. This is personal for me. But I love that when I'm around a master, this is just giving me like a really good vibe. And also the things that I love doing, I always strive for mastery, let's say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there was
Yeah.
one of my mentors, Eki Strauss, shoutouts, who started out as a music producer and engineer, was really successful, and then kind of, lost kind of the hunger in it, and then went on, moved to dubbing. He was a dubbing mixer and still is, I think,
Oh.
doing that a
Mhm.
lot for German dubbing. And then one of his friends started this company where I was then hired as the first sound designer. And so he started mixing original dialogue, series and movies there, coming
Uh-huh.
from the dubbing world. And I was starting out there doing this series for a whole year, and he was always mixing the episodes that I kind of prepared. And that's how we kind of got to know each other. And then he became my mentor for many years, and then also a friend of mine. And it was then
Love that.
later on, when I was working as a sound designer on movies, that I had the luxury to be on the mixing stage while he was working.
All
And
right.
And then I experienced something really unique, because imagine you have like a TV movie, and a normal re-recording mixer maybe takes at least one full day or maybe 2 days to go through the dialogue once properly. And Eki kind of had a technique where he just used this API semi-parametric EQ from Waves, and then had that on the board on 4 faders. And then he just listened to the dialogue, like, let's get an idea of what the dialogue is lacking, or what's going on there, like on a general overview point of view. So he then decided what bands to put on which frequency.
Oh, I
And
love
then
that.
he just had the volume fader on the bus on the right hand, and then his 4 fingers on the 4 bands of the API. And then he just went on the fly, like
Oh,
rocking a like conducting a plane, or flying a plane, and then
right, right.
just recording like all of the automation, like as he go, and then okay, stop, go back, continue, and that way he could mix 90 minutes of dialogue in 3 hours.
Amazing.
And then all the rest of the time he was always like giving out all his stories, and Bastian, do you know how a Pultec EQ works? Do you know the physics behind it? No. Okay, look here. Then he started drawing, and this is how it works, and you have this, and blah blah blah. And it was always like that. And there you can also see that all the years of really excellence that he had in his music career as an engineer and producer, and then developing over that into dubbing, he could like just use all his knowledge and put it into this thing that he developed that no one else does, and then he's double triple the time quicker as everyone else. And
Amazing. Yeah.
so I love these kind of things, and
hmm
then also if you like that good, you can then sometimes also sit back and relax, and and have
Right,
fun,
right.
as you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. You've made the most efficient process you can in the way that you work, so that you get the intended results, but quickly, and
Yeah,
then whatever time is left is fun, right? I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So that's
That's
already
great.
worth, to take on the mastery challenge, and really work
hmm
hard. I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's excellent. It's my
And
point of view.
enjoy that challenge
Yeah,
along the way. To
100%. Yeah. If you don't
yeah,
enjoy that,
gaining
how can you sustain it and maintain it?
beats me. I don't
So
know. I don't know how you could.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're both doing this to this day, right? You mentioned you look into the things that you have to get better at, and in terms of a
hmm
generalist, and yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah. Try and round out the areas that I know are weak points, and then continue to do the things that I already feel confident in. Just to maintain that as well. So kind of always growing. I guess
hmm,
that's my main goal here. Never stop learning.
yeah. I think that's a
Yeah.
good point to stop, and I want to really thank you for taking the time. I so
Absolutely.
I completely feel the energy and the love that we both have for audio coming through, even though you're in the US, I'm in Germany. And
Yeah, how many hour difference? I was trying to figure that out before. It's like we have daylight savings time that's throwing me off, but yeah, it's
it's like
great.
6 hours or something.
Ooh. Well,
Uh,
thank you for putting all of this together and inviting me to come on. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, getting
yeah,
to know you.
same. And then let's
Yeah,
just use this as a starting point of our conversation. And I'm really
agreed.
happy that we are now connected.
Yes, yes, same.
So yeah,
Very good.
thank you very much. And everyone who wants to reach you, like, what's the best way
Oh
to get
gosh.
in touch with you?
I have my website, andrewcorbett.com is probably the easiest. I have all of the, social links and things there on the ones that I'm still active on. And yeah, anyone watching, please reach out. You're always welcome to. I'm as accessible as I possibly can be.
Cool. Thank you very much for doing that. The
Yes.
bliss of being in the game audio world, I guess.
Yeah,
Thank,
totally.
thank,
Totally.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for watching up until the end. It really means a lot. It means that you are dedicated and interested in game audio and you really want to make a difference for yourself. If you resonate with either Andrew or me as a mentor, then please reach out to us, andrewcorbitt.com. You can maybe hop on his Discord and get mentoring from him, especially about game audio. And if you want to learn the Foley aspect of recording things and also how to elevate within social media and build a personal brand, you can reach out to me on Instagram, put in the word industry in a DM or a comment or somewhere, and then you can set up a 20-minute roadmap call with me and we can talk about your vision and if you actually match to join my community, the Foley Guild. Having said that, I hope you enjoyed the episode and see you in one of the next videos. Peace, the Foley Teacher.